So guys, what's going on? I hope you guys are well. Let's get straight into it. Let's start talking boxing. So Derek James, a trainer of Errol Spence, says that Errol Spence v Canelo Alvarez is the fight to make in boxing. It's the biggest fight in world boxing. Floyd Mayweather a couple years ago said that, he believes that in about a few years time, and he was talking in 2015-16, I think. He said the fight to make in boxing and the super fight that we're going to get in boxing is Canelo Alvarez v Errol Spence. And it looks like he may be right. Listen, I do think that Errol Spence has got business to handle at 147. I think Canelo Alvarez has now moved on to 168 and he's a super middleweight. He's a big boy now. And whereas Errol Spence isn't that big, that fight would have to happen at 160. Errol Spence has said if Canelo's is willing to fight at 160, I'm more than happy to take that fight. A lot of people that I've made this video in the past, and a lot of people have poo-pooed it, saying that Spence has got no chance. Canelo would batter him. I am of that same opinion. I've seen Errol struggle against welterweights, and I'm thinking that this guy's a lot more skilled than those guys that you got in the ring with. He's a lot better. He punches a lot harder. He's got a better chin than those guys. He's more skilled. He's got more variety of better. He's a better boxer. He's got more variety of punches. I just don't like the fight for Spence. But I definitely commend it if he takes the fight and takes the step and takes the challenge. The public will buy into it a lot more, and they'll think that Errol Spence has got a chance because of the fact that the way Errol Spence has been built up. But like I said, I think a welterweight fighting a middleweight, I don't really think there's a chance. Let's not forget, Canelo's been in there with the top middleweights, and he's beaten them. He beat Golovkin, which was, some people think it was very close, fair enough, but even then it was very competitive. I don't think Spence could be competitive against Golovkin. Not over 12 rounds anyway. And I think even Danny Jacobs, if Danny Jacobs fought Spence or some of the welterweights, Danny Jacobs wins for me. So personally, I don't think that's a super fight, just because I don't think it's a 50-50 fight. People may disagree with me. I don't think it's a 50-50 fight. I don't. Is Errol Spence that big a draw at this point where it'll be a monster fight? It'll be a huge fight. I have no doubt about it. Could it cross 1 million pay-per-views? Potentially. I think Spence would need to beat likes of Pacquiao, Crawford for that fight to be made credible. He'd need to clean out the 147 division. If he's not going to clean out the 147 division, then really, I don't really see, like, if he was to beat Danny Garcia and then, campaign for a Canelo fight, I don't see how people are going to think that, Errol Spence can beat Canelo Alvarez. Because I don't think he's done anything thus far that suggests he could beat Canelo. Canelo's a massive monster middleweight. He's a big punch. I just don't see it from a competitive standpoint of Errol Spence winning that fight, if I'm totally honest with you. I have a lot of people say, oh, well, you support Amir Khan, and Amir Khan outboxed Canelo for 6 rounds and then he got knocked out. Well, Amir Khan has a different style to Spence. Amir Khan's a lot faster hands. He moves around a lot quicker. Errol Spence don't fight like that. Errol Spence don't box and move. Yeah, Errol Spence has got a better chin than Amir Khan, but that doesn't mean that Errol Spence has got a better chin than Amir Khan. That doesn't mean he can go up to light heavyweight and beat and take light heavyweight punches. So I think that's irrelevant. The fact is, styles make fights. Khan's style was always going to give Canelo problems for 4 or 5 rounds. He's very fast. He moves very quick. Spence don't fight like that. Spence don't have fast hands like that. Spence don't move like that. Spence likes to stand his ground and break you down. He's more of a pressure fighter. He's going to have to walk a tightrope for 12 rounds. And I don't believe he has the style to do it. I don't believe he can walk a tightrope for 12 rounds. Because I believe he likes to engage. He likes to come forward and break you down. How's he going to come forward and break down and pressurize Canelo when he's the bigger guy, when he punches harder, when he's got the better chin? How's he going to do it? People don't understand where I'm coming from. They just look at, oh, well, he did it for 6 rounds. Well, he's stylistically a different fighter to Spence. Stylistically a way different fighter to Spence. I just told you, Spence likes to break you down. He likes to bust you up. How are you going to do that against a bigger guy? There's a reason why why Spence isn't moving up anytime soon, because all the advantages that he has at welterweight, he will lose. Spence should really not be fighting at welterweight. He's too big to be a welterweight. Him, Brook, guys like that, they're killing himself to make welterweight. They kill themselves. You know why they make it though? Because they're trying to gain an advantage fighting smaller men. Spence is trying to gain advantage fighting smaller men. Listen, if you can make 147, then you can make it. Fair enough. Spence can make it so he can compete. But really, I think now it gets to a point where a big guy like Spence, eventually it becomes a disadvantage because you start getting drained. You don't have the same energy, especially in the later rounds. And Spence is getting to that point. He's getting old and he's starting to, I feel, looking like he's becoming more drained. As you get older, it's harder for you to make weight. And I think Spence is looking drained to me. And I think he needs to move up. I don't think he's got long at 147. This is why I think there's a possibility Crawford fight might not happen, because I believe that Spence might not be able to fight at 147 any longer. I hope I'm wrong. I hope Spence is able to fight at 147. But there's a great chance he might not. There's a great chance he might not. So, personally, I don't know whether, Derek James. See, Canelo came out and said he would love the fight and it's a great fight, but he said the weight's a problem. He was realistic. But Derek James and Errol Spence's camp, they seem more interested in wanting a Canelo fight. They want the Canelo fight because they know it's a big payday. They know it's a chance there. It's daring to be great, but also all the pressure is off Spence because he wouldn't be expected to win that. I like Errol Spence. I've told you guys I'm a big fan, but I want to see him fight Crawford. I want to see him fight Pacquiao. I want to see him fight Thurman. I want to see him fight all the welterweights first. I don't even think he's fought the best welterweights yet. He fought Brook and he's fought Porter, and now he's fighting Danny Garcia. But there's 3 welterweights that I believe are the 3 best that were unified champion. All of those guys that he's fought, that he's going to fight at welterweight, the names that I've taken in Pacquiao, Thurman, and Crawford, Crawford hasn't achieved more than the other 3 names that I mentioned in Garcia, Brook, and I think he's about to achieve the same. But, he would be favored, and pound for pound, he's rated a much higher fighter than any of those 3 names, Garcia, Brook, and Porter, right? He's pound for pound a much better fighter. And Thurman achieved more than all the other those 3 welterweights that I mentioned. He was a unified champion and he beat Garcia and Porter, let's not forget. And Pacquiao's just a legend. So I believe that Errol Spence hasn't even fought the best welterweights yet. So I don't know how he could move up and fight at middleweight when he hasn't tested himself first. At least beat the best at welterweight, which you haven't done yet. No one can tell me that Porter, Brook, and Garcia are the best at welterweight. They're not. There's 3 other guys that, like I said, Thurman beat both of them, Porter and Garcia. So he hasn't fought the best at welterweight yet. He needs to beat those guys, and then a Canelo fight makes a lot of sense, because then he'll have mileage. He'll be a superstar name. He'd be a big name. Right now, the reason why Errol Spence hasn't reached his commercial peak, because of the fact that he hasn't got in the ring with Thurman. He hasn't got in the ring with Pacquiao. He hasn't got in the ring with Crawford. That's when you up your commercial peak, when people think you're going into fights that are 50-50, or fights that are competitive, very close fights. Like, nobody's giving Garcia a chance, really. Nobody gave Porter a chance. Yet Porter did a lot better than what people thought. Spence was a favorite against Brook. But now you go into a fight with Thurman where Spence would be the favorite, but not a huge favorite. And Thurman could pull off the win. Against Crawford, he may even go in the fight as an underdog. Against Pacquiao, yeah, he'd be a favorite. But Pacquiao, again, is seen as a much more legit. All those names of Thurman and Pacquiao are seen as much more legitimate names. Way better welterweights than what those 3 names that I mentioned. So, for me, Spence has still got a lot of proving to do. Spence is a great fighter. I'll say out there, people may think I'm not turning on Spence. I'm a big fan of Spence. I'm probably one of Spence's biggest fans. However, Spence has got to prove himself against those 3 guys before he decides to move up to fight Canelo. Now, the only time I would say, okay, it's all right for Spence to move up is if he can't make the weight any longer, because I wouldn't want to see a drained Errol Spence fighting those guys, because he may well lose, because he's not at his best. So if that's the case, then I have no problem with him moving up. moving up to 154, maybe getting a belt there at 154, then saying, okay, I want to fight Canelo now. But not taking a fight just for the sake of taking a fight because it's a big payday, it's a big name in Canelo. That's not what fans want to see. Fans want to see Errol Spence fight the best welterweights first, if he can still make the weight. You know, and I want to see Errol Spence fight Canelo. I would love to see that fight, but I want to see the Terence Crawford fight first. I want to see the Keith Thurman fight first. But I want to see him fight Pacquiao. I think Pacquiao leave that side, but I think Thurman and Crawford are legit guys that he should fight. You know, and he's already stated he doesn't want to fight Keith Thurman because of what Keith Thurman did in the past, which I think I can see where Spence is coming from, but I just think two wrongs don't make a right. Yes, he did you dirty before, but I feel Spence should be the bigger man, especially when Spence will be a favorite to win that as well. But I just, like I said, I think with boxing, there's a lot of jumping weight classes. There's weight classes for a reason. And I think you should only jump weight classes when you're accomplished in your own weight class first. I think when you've conquered everything in your weight class, like Terence Crawford did in the 140-pound, then he moved up to 147. That's the right thing to do. Terence Crawford didn't just move up. Terence Crawford's career's been mapped perfectly. It's just that now he's kind of come to a standstill because he can't get the other guys in the ring. But really, it's been mapped perfectly. Errol Spence, until Terence Crawford became undisputed champion, then he moved up. He cleaned out the 140 division, and then he moved up. You know, and he wants to clean out the 147 division. I'm pretty sure when he does that, he may consider retiring or maybe moving up to 154. Or maybe he may just retire because he thinks he's too small for 154. Let's see what Crawford decides to do. Let's see what happens with Crawford next. But the Spence situation with Canelo, yes, Canelo and Spence may be the biggest fight in the sport eventually. I don't think it is now, but eventually it may well be, because both of them may be huge names. But from a competitive standpoint, that fight will always have a question mark, because the reason why I say that fight may not be a super fight, because of the fact that Spence is a welterweight, you know, and even if he moves up, unless Spence cleans out the 147-pound division, where then I feel he'll reach his commercial peak and then he'd be able to fight someone like Canelo, and then it potentially could be a super fight. I do think the competitiveness of that fight and the chances of Spence winning that fight will be probably something that holds that back, just because Spence isn't a legit middleweight. He may be a guy coming down from 181, but that's irrelevant. The fact is Canelo can't make welterweight. Spence can. So that means Canelo's the bigger man here. He's the bigger guy. He's the bigger man. So that's my take on it. What do you guys think? Leave your thoughts in the comment section below. Make sure to smash that like button, guys. It really helps me. It really helps my channel when you hit that like button. It helps the algorithm. I really appreciate all your support. And guys, remember to please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. I'll see you all in the next video. Peace.